they deserve. Of course. Very good. Order, order. Rebecca Paul to move the motion.
It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir John, as I bring this debate on government support for employment in the automotive industry. The automotive industry is an important part of the UK economy, contributing 93 billion turnover and 22 billion value added. It invests around 4 billion each year in R&D and employs around 0.8 million people across the wider industry. Many of these jobs are high-skilled, high-paid jobs, of which a considerable proportion are outside London and the South East. But I'm pleased to say that some of these high-value jobs are in the South East, in places like my constituency in Reigate. In Burheath, just down the road from Epsom, you'll find the UK HQ for Toyota GB. Not only is it one of the biggest employers in the local area, but it is also an eco HQ. In a project that started in 2014, Toyota partnered with Kew Royal Botanic Gardens and the Surrey Wildlife Trust to create a landscaped oasis full of native species from the surrounding countryside, complete with an orchard and meadow. It is wonderful to see a business taking the time and energy to ensure its HQ fits into our special corner of Surrey. And it doesn't stop there. Outside of the site, they have supported many local initiatives, from providing meeting rooms for community meetings to providing buses for local groups and charities. More than £40,000 in grants were given to local groups in 2024 to support their work, like the Brigitte Trust, Homestar, Epsom, Newell and Banstead, St Catherine's Hospice and Warren Mead School Parent and Friend Association, just to name a few. So today, before I talk more broadly about the automotive industry, I want to take the opportunity to thank Toyota GB for their significant contributions to the Banstead, Burheath and Epsom area. The automotive industry as a whole is an important one to this country, to our economy, and it's vital that it isn't smothered by over-regulation, over-taxation and green initiatives. It's only by creating an environment that is conducive to growth that we'll see the creation of more high-quality jobs. UK car and commercial vehicle production saw a significant decline of 11.6% in February 2025. Worryingly, this marks the 12th consecutive month of declining car production. This must be an important wake-up call. More must be done to protect the automotive industry we already have here. More must be done to help grow it, and more must be done to encourage inward investment in new plants and new technologies. It can only continue to create new jobs and innovative technologies with growth-supporting policies. The automotive industry accounts for over 12% of total UK exports of goods, generating 115 billion of trade in total automotive imports and exports. 8 out of 10 cars produced in the UK are exported overseas to 140 different countries. But automotive manufacturers now face additional US tariff costs of around 1.9 billion, which will have a significant and detrimental impact on the industry. The USA is the UK's second largest car export market after the EU, with exports of over 101,000 units in 2024. These tariffs have material implications for competitiveness, investment and export potential, and it's vital that the government's policy making reflects this new protectionist and uncertain environment. With this massive setback to the industry, it's now even more important that we get things right domestically to create an environment that stimulates growth for this important industry. So today I want to raise some of the biggest challenges here in the UK, and I would ask the Minister to confirm her plans to address these. In simple terms, for an industry to thrive, it needs to be able to manufacture products at competitive cost, employ people with the skills it needs, have free access to a market for its products without barriers of restrictions, and not be taxed to high heaven so it can reinvest in innovation and growth. A good product will always do well. If it's something someone needs, it provides value for money, and it makes their life easier, they will buy it. It really is that straightforward. So let's talk about the ZEV mandate challenge first. The zero-emission vehicle mandate sets out the percentage of new zero-emission cars and vans manufacturers are required to produce each year up to 2030. 80% of new cars and 70% of new vans sold in Great Britain must be EVs by 2030, increasing to 100% by 2035. Part of the reason for introducing this policy was to provide investment certainty for the charging sector to expand the network, given that lack of charging points is one of the things that puts consumers off buying an electric car. There can be no doubt that it is a well-intended policy, but as the old saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Notably, the moving of goalposts by governments of various colours in recent years is deeply unhelpful. The last government made the decision to delay the ban on new diesel and petrol cars by 5 years, from 2030 to 2035, whereas this new government has reversed it. Putting aside the question of which position is the correct one, this chopping and changing is not fair on the automotive industry. They need certainty and consistency so they can deliver what's expected of them while still growing their businesses. But I do also want to recognise the government's recent announcement to increase the flexibility of the ZEV mandate, which I know is welcomed by the industry and shows that the government is listening. I particularly welcome the reduction in fines for missing targets and the allowance for all forms of hybrid cars until 2035. However, I would suggest that the whole approach in this area needs to be reconsidered as a priority. Tinkering isn't enough. The ZEV mandate targets are incredibly challenging for businesses to meet. It makes no sense to expect businesses to dictate what products their customers should buy, when we all know that it's consumer preference and need, and rightly so, that should drive the products a business sells. In 2025, ZEV sales will need to increase by 43% for cars and 171% for vans for automotive businesses to achieve the mandate targets. This is not achievable. And for every missed EV sale, there is a fine of £12,000 per vehicle levied on these businesses. So the automotive industry really can't win on this one. Consumers aren't ready to buy EVs yet because of the lack of charging infrastructure, battery range issues and cost. But it's the automotive businesses held responsible and expected to pay the price. If we continue this way, we'll see contraction of the industry, plant closures and job losses, all in the name of net zero. And it has already started with Vauxhall owner Stellantis announcing plans to close a van factory in Luton, which employs around 1,100 people. The industry has already invested billions in bringing over 130 ZEV models to market, and despite spending some £4.5 billion in market support for EVs in 2024, they still missed last year's target by some way. This level of support from industry is unsustainable and is diverting resources away from investment in new technology, models, plants and R&D. I would urge the government to take responsibility for its role in delivery of charging infrastructure and lowering of energy costs, rather than beating businesses over the head for their own failings. I would also urge the Minister to review the mandate targets ASAP and consider other more effective ways of driving growth in EV take-up. It would make much more sense to incentivise consumers rather than penalising businesses. The ZEV mandate targets cannot magically drive demand out of thin air. What we need is more carrot and less stick. Has the Minister considered such alternative options as reducing the VAT on EV sales and on public charging, or on offering plug-in grants for cars? These could be straightforward and effective ways of boosting consumer demand. But if the government is really wedded to the current draconian ZEV mandate approach, the fair thing would be for government to commit to delivering public charging infrastructure on equivalent targets. So, for example, in 2025, the target is that 28% of new car sales must be electric. So government must ensure by the end of 2025 that there are sufficient public charging points to serve those new EVs across the UK. And if government fails to do this, then that shortfall should be offset against the fines levied on the automotive industry, reducing what they have to pay. Surely that is fairer. Government needs to play its role and must be held to account when it doesn't deliver too. Before moving on, I want to touch on domestic energy prices. And this applies to all manufacturing industries, not just the automotive.
Would Honourable give way?
I will, of course, give way.
Can I commend Honourable for bringing this forward? And, Mr Chairman, or Sir John, I did some research for my back home in Northern Ireland. I'm sorry I can't speak in the debate because I have sponsored an event at 10 a.m. and I can't miss that because if I'm not there, they can't have it. So in relation to the automotive industry, does the Honourable, in Northern Ireland we have a vibrant sector, gives some 11% of employment, some 13% of GVA, and that's down not just to Wrightbus, which has a great sales across the United Kingdom and indeed further afield, but also to the other automotive industry in Northern Ireland. So does the Honourable agree that when it comes to support for business and help for research and development, that government needs to step up to that? We have the skills and we need the support. So today's debate is a significant step in the way forward for us everywhere in this great United Kingdom. Research and development in the mainland, yes, but also in Northern Ireland. I think the Minister already knows that, and I suspect the Minister is already doing that for me. Thank you. Yeah.
I thank the Honourable Member for that intervention, and I do agree about the importance of supporting businesses. And I think one of the themes you'll see from the debate today in my speech is also about making sure that we remove those obstacles and barriers. I think sometimes we put more in the way that hinders that growth. And I hope that conversation starts today and we can get to a better place where we're supporting our amazing automotive industry, which delivers so much for this country, and including Northern Ireland. So energy costs must come down. They can't manufacture at competitive cost with energy costs being so high in comparison to what other countries pay. Again, we must not shoot ourselves in the foot with net zero obsession. We must make sensible decisions on energy mix to ensure energy security and value for money so that our manufacturing industry can compete on the global stage. That means investing in nuclear and not making the mistake of thinking that solar and wind is the silver bullet. I would urge the Minister to provide her views on how she intends to reduce energy costs for manufacturing industries in the short to long term so they're better able to compete. And I also recognise that some of this is going across many other briefs, so I do appreciate that this is not something that the Minister on a standalone basis has full control over. And that now brings me on to another important challenge, that of ensuring we have a skilled workforce. Research by the Institute of the Motor Industry suggests that around 107,000 additional technicians will be needed by 2030. This is an amazing opportunity for this country, and the more the industry grows, the more jobs and opportunity there will be. But we must ensure we have people here with the skills to take up the jobs to ensure success of the industry. And that's why it's so important we must support apprenticeships, which are a great way for young people to gain the skills they need whilst working. A survey from the SMMT in February 2025 found that the UK automotive sector will increase apprenticeship numbers by 16% in 2025, with opportunities spanning manufacturing, supply chain logistics and vehicle maintenance. The most in-demand roles are design and development engineers, EV technicians and specialists in batteries and power electronics. This equates to over 700 new apprenticeships available among UK automakers. I want to take this opportunity to mention East Surrey College in my constituency, which offers full-time and part-time qualifications in vehicle technology, maintenance and electric hybrid vehicles. I recently visited and I was so impressed by the expert teachers, the well-equipped workshops with industry-standard equipment and the very talented and engaged students. It's important we ensure that we provide the right courses so that people with the right skills are available to fill job opportunities within the industry, and East Surrey College is certainly playing its part. On the topic of Level 7 apprenticeships, I would also ask the Minister to clarify what the impact will be of abolishing them on the automotive industry and how she plans to mitigate any detriment. Additionally, I would urge the Minister to consider how the new government's employment rights bill will impact on the automotive industry too. In February 2025, the Motor Ombudsman survey found that 58% of businesses reported difficulty recruiting qualified technicians to meet growing workload, and that these difficulties would be made worse by the Employment Rights Bill, which is causing businesses to re-evaluate their hiring strategies. It's vitally important that the UK remains competitive and that the industry isn't further burdened when it faces so many challenges already. It is already clear that the rise in employer national insurance contributions is putting additional pressure on the automotive industry with a cost of £200 million. And this increased cost of doing business in the UK will reduce inward investment, economic growth and ultimately jobs. The Institute of the Motor Industry said, and I quote, "These changes are likely to have a significant impact on costs for small businesses that operate in the automotive sector, which is already facing a skills gap of 20,000 vacancies." And they have also said that these additional costs will dampen investment in training and continuous professional development. If this government is really committed to boosting job opportunities and growth in the automotive sector, it really needs to reflect on some of its recent policies. Just saying that growth is a priority doesn't make it so. It needs policies that don't put obstacles in the way. Lastly, I want to raise the challenge of taxation. In the interest of time, I won't speak in detail, but the automotive industry has raised concerns about recent announcements on proposals to ban employee car ownership schemes and changes to capital allowances and benefit-in-kind treatment for double cab pickup vehicles. The SMMT is concerned that these changes will undermine the market, hit profitability and viability, and have serious consequences for UK tax returns, automotive OEMs and their employees and sole trader small business operations. I would ask the Minister to confirm whether there are any plans to remove or adjust the vehicle excise duty expensive car supplement too. I think that's probably enough from me for now, so I will bring my comments to a close so that anyone else who wishes to contribute has the time to do so. I thank all honourable members here for attending this debate and showing their support for the automotive industry. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered government support for employment in the automotive industry, automotive manufacturing sector. Serena Brackenbridge.
Thank you, Sir John, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And may I take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Member for Reigate for bringing this timely debate, particularly in light of the turmoil and uncertainty caused by US tariffs. Today, as on many occasions, I rise to champion one of the UK automotive sector's flagship site, Jaguar Land Rover's engine manufacturing centre at the I-54, which is just outside my constituency in Wolverhampton North East. Its world-class facility employs 1,700 people, with many of those living in my constituency. And I welcome the 100 more roles recently announced as part of JLR's drive toward electrification, which is part of an additional £18 billion investment over the next 5 years. The UK automotive sector is a cornerstone of our manufacturing economy, generating £93 billion in turnover last year and supporting hundreds of thousands of skilled jobs. Yet today, the sector faces serious uncertainty following the announcement of a 25% US tariff on automotive imports. So I am here to seek urgent clarifications. First, what progress has been made in negotiations with the US to remove or reduce these damaging tariffs? And second, in the worst-case scenario, the absence of a deal, how will the government act to support the industry through both the immediate and longer-term challenges? The US is a crucial market for JLR, accounting for around a quarter of its global sales. A prolonged 25% tariff would hit this business and the UK auto sector disproportionately. We need a deal that prioritises reducing these barriers. But I support the calm, clear and statesman-like leadership taken by our Prime Minister amidst the turbulence and erratic policy shifts from across the Atlantic. However, if a deal cannot be secured, then the government must act swiftly to protect jobs, sustain investment and safeguard our industrial base. In the West Midlands, this is a potential £6.2 billion hit, the biggest regional impact in the UK. The support announced recently at JLR's Solihull site in April is welcome. To support the transition to net zero and the automotive sector, the Prime Minister has introduced pragmatic changes, easing EV targets, allowing cleaner petrol cars to count towards quotas, and extending hybrid sales to 2035. These are realistic steps that back innovation while keeping our ambitions intact. But now, we must fully deliver on our promise to protect British industry from global shocks, and this includes supporting time to pay to help manage cash flow, cutting energy costs and creating a new advanced manufacturing partnership with the West Midlands to bolster supply chains and drive growth. Finally, I want to highlight another reason for why JLR is such a vital employer in my constituency, and that's its outstanding commitment to skills and apprenticeships. With 350 new places across BTEC and T-level routes, from engineering to electrification, it's building the workforce for our future that we so badly need. It's a powerful example of how business and education work in partnership, hand in hand, to secure long-term prosperity. So I will be asking the Minister, as I have done so recently as well, what progress has been made in securing a deal with the US? And if one can't be reached, what specific support will the government provide to protect this vital sector? and ensure the world-class facilities like JLR's I-54 site can continue to thrive. Thank you.
Antonia Banks.
Thank you very much, Sir John, and thank you for indulging me in letting me speak when I walked in so late. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the member for Reigate and congratulate her on securing this important debate. We've heard today how strategically important the automotive industry is for our country, the £93 billion contribution that it makes in terms of its turnover across the industry and its supply chain. I would like to flag how important it is to many of our regional economies. In my constituency of Tipton, Wednesbury and Coseley, the home of the Industrial Revolution, we have 21,000 jobs in manufacturing across 1,000 firms, many of them in the supply chain for the automotive industry. Recently, I visited Lavenders, who make cast aluminium casings for JLR's new electric Land Rover, and it was incredible to see it go from the silver liquid all the way through to holding the finished casing. World-class products in a family firm made in the heart of my constituency. Or Truflo, who make industrial air cooling fans that go in industrial vehicles and who export across the world, both to China and to the US, to the type of construction and HGV vehicle that we're also familiar with. And then, of course, as my friend, the member for Wolverhampton North East has so eloquently outlined, the West Midlands is the home of Jaguar Land Rover, with its 34,000 jobs, many of them people who live in my constituency, and the 200,000 jobs in the supply chain. Now, the automotive industry faces two key challenges. Firstly, around transition, and secondly, around the tariffs. Now, the transition piece, automotive is critical if we're going to reach net zero. I don't believe this country are going to give up our cars. I certainly don't want to give up mine. So what matters is that we move towards net zero in a way that is sustainable and supports the freedom that owning a car brings. And we can see that the investment towards that net zero future is already being begun to be made, whether it be JLR's investment of £18 billion over the coming 5 years, or the investment elsewhere in the industry. I was so glad to hear the Prime Minister go to JLR in April and announce the flexibilities that have for so long been needed in that ZEV mandate to smooth the requirements, cut the fines and ensure that there is a continued role for hybrids. We know there is more to do to increase uptake of electric vehicles, whether that be on consumer demand, on the charging infrastructure that we need. And more broadly, I hope that the industrial strategy, when we see it, takes action on the issues that we know have held back manufacturing, advanced manufacturing in this country, around skills, around access to finance, particularly in the supply chain and the smaller manufacturers, and around energy costs. I was absolutely appalled to hear Nissan tell the Business Select Committee 2 weeks ago that their plant in Sunderland is their most expensive in the country, in the world, my apologies, in the world, because of the energy costs. So it will be great to hear the Industry Minister's thoughts ahead of the industrial strategy, although I know she will have more to say in the coming months. And turning now to the issue of tariffs, talking to Richard Parker, our Mayor of the West Midlands, and his team this morning, they've just produced some research by Steve Rigby that my friend referred to, a £6.2 billion hit to the West Midlands economy from the US automotive tariffs if nothing changes. The biggest regional hit in the country, and 52% of our local manufacturing base are saying they're warning about profits because of the tariffs. Now, JLR alone accounts for 4% of UK goods exports. We need a deal, and soon. And I thank my friends, the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, the Business Secretary and the Industry Minister for their calm approach to the negotiations. That is right, but we have to get a deal, because otherwise that impact is coming down the road for jobs in my constituency, in my friends, in all of our constituencies, and for that critical research and development that means that we will navigate that transition to electric cars, to net zero that we need. Fast, where it comes to a deal, is better than perfect. That is the message from the West Midlands automotive industry to my colleagues in government. Now, God forbid we get no deal. I would like to hear from ministers the options that they intend to explore to help the industry, especially given the employment base in my constituency, the supply chain for the automotive industry. There are a number of options which were set out in the letter written by the chair of the Business Select Committee to ministers earlier this week. And it would be good to hear what consideration is being given to things like reductions in employer costs, help with energy costs, domestic sales subsidies for EVs, an increase in research and development tax credits, help with cash flow, particularly, as I've said, for the smaller companies in the supply chain, where I hear that time and time again. And then, of course, there's the £2 billion allocated to the automotive industry's transition in the budget, which I know we will hear more about in the industrial strategy. It would be good to know whether that can be used to help in the event that there is no deal and there is a prolonged period of these continuing tariffs. But that money is necessary for transition, for research, development, for moving our workforces to the new production techniques and new requirements that a new industry requires. So it will, in time, have to be replaced. I know my colleagues in government know how urgent this is and have been working at pace to get the deal our automotive sector needs. I would urge them to continue that work with the support of all of us in this House for this vital sector of the UK economy, of which we are so proud.
Oh.
Freddie, had you finished?
I had.
So sorry. Okay, well, we're going to move to the wind-ups now, but given the time, I just wanted to emphasise to frontbenchers that they shouldn't fall into the Gladstone trap of becoming intoxicated by the exuberance of their own verbosity. So, so with that, I call Clive Jones, Liberal Democrat spokesman.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Sir John, and I thank the Honourable Member for Reigate for securing this very important debate. The UK's automotive industry is a cornerstone of our economy, contributing £93 billion and providing many skilled jobs across the country. These are high-skilled, high-wage jobs, on average 13% above the national wage. And crucially, many are located outside of London and the South East. This industry faces intense global competition, supply chain pressures and the ongoing demands of the transition to net zero, as well as Trump's disastrous tariffs, which are deliberately targeted at the automotive sector. The UK government, under the Conservatives and now under Labour, are struggling and failing to grow our economy, but the automotive sector will need to be at the forefront of any plan to get onto the right path again. When I visited BMW's mini plant in Cowley earlier this year...
My honourable friend give way.
I will.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for giving way and for his visit to the Cowley mini plant in Oxfordshire as the Liberal Democrat spokesperson for trade. It was a pleasurable visit that all Oxfordshire MPs, Liberal Democrat Oxfordshire MPs attended, and we saw the amazing work that's being done there. But I'm very worried that the government is asleep at the wheel on this issue, and we will see job cuts at Cowley as a result of the very high energy costs within the United Kingdom, and I'd like to see the government do more to tackle that and potentially support industry. And I'd also like to see the government announce greater flexibility that will benefit not just luxury car manufacturers like JLR, which is very welcome, but also cars that are intended for the mass market. Does my honourable friend agree?
Thank you very much for your intervention, and certainly agree with you what you say about energy prices, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later in my speech. So when I visited BMW's plant, I met with hard-working staff who are the most at risk if the government continue to get this wrong. Whether plants are being closed or investment scaled down, people lose their livelihoods and a rich history of manufacturing at the heart of Britain is lost, possibly forever. This sector is at a crossroads. With the right support, it can lead the way in innovation, climate action and economic resilience. But without swift and strategic action, we risk losing a competitive advantage built up over generations. That's why more must be done to end the uncertainties that the car industry face. And that starts by building consumer confidence in electric vehicles. The previous Conservative government failed to support a thriving electric vehicle market in the UK, implementing chaotic U-turns that badly hurt the industry. And they continually failed to deliver the charging infrastructure that is needed to boost demand, create jobs and cut emissions. The government must now the government now must right this wrong by cutting VAT on public charging by 5%. Invest urgently in schemes to speed up the installation of rapid charging points throughout the country and make it as affordable as possible to own an EV by reducing electricity prices that are passed on to the consumer. One of the clearest calls from the sector is around energy costs. UK automotive businesses face electricity prices that are on average twice as high as those in the EU. Gas costs are nearly 60% higher. This is an unsustainable burden. If we are serious about reshoring manufacturing and making the UK a global hub for ZEVs, we must address this urgently. Ensuring we have a strong trading relationship with our economic allies is vital for supporting UK automotive employment. The EU remains our largest trading partner for vehicles, and electric vehicles are now the biggest share of the UK automotive exports by value. With the next EU-UK summit on the horizon, the time to act is now. We must give investors and manufacturers certainty and protect the employment and regional growth that depend on it. I would like to ask the Minister what contingency planning is in place to protect UK manufacturers and exporters if President Trump's damaging tariffs remain in place. What action is being taken to reduce the UK's industrial energy costs to ensure a level playing field with our global competitors? What is the status of the £200 million announced in the autumn budget for charging infrastructure that exists in limbo? What is the status of the Rapid Charging Fund, which has delivered ultra-rapid en route hubs across the country? And will the UK formally seek to accede to the Pan-Euro Mediterranean Convention to provide manufacturers with a more flexible and reliable original framework? Thank you.
Before I call the Minister, for the remaining backbenchers, intervention should be pertinent and pithy. I call the Shadow Minister, Greg Smith.
Thank you, Sir John. It's always a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I begin by drawing the House's attention to my entries in the Register of Interests. Can I congratulate my honourable friend for Reigate on not only securing this debate, but delivering what I thought was a superb opening that spoke with passion for the automotive sector, particularly Toyota in her own constituency, but she spoke with realism about the challenges that we face and the other way that is possible to ensure consumers get to choose vehicles of the future that are greener, that are cleaner, that don't rely on fossil fuels, but don't necessarily have to fit in the government's chosen winner, despite the fact they claim to be technology neutral, that is battery electric, whose sales figures, once you remove fleet sales, are so utterly appalling because people simply don't want to buy one. Employment in the automotive manufacturing sector, a sector that has long been the backbone of British industry, supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs, driving innovation, is the foundation for regional economies across our great United Kingdom. When I look in my own constituency, whilst there are no major manufacturers of vehicles, my constituency sits in the absolute heart of motorsport valley, and it is the motorsport sector and the supply chains in the motorsport sector that do so much to create the next big thing, to innovate, to find the solutions, yes, for speed and for the racetrack, but that often has that direct translation across from the race car into the road car. If you look at the history of so much British innovation in motorsport, it finds itself in the cars that I am sure all of us in this chamber and across the country drive today. It is therefore with great concern that I speak about the marked lack of government support for the vital automotive sector under this Labour government. And let's be clear, Sir John, this is not a new challenge. Automotive manufacturing has been under pressure for many years, facing the combined forces of global competition, supply chain shocks, and the urgent transition to cleaner technologies. Note the plural, cleaner technologies, not just one. But what we are seeing now is a deeper, more systemic failure, one rooted in the inability of this government to deliver on its own promises and to provide the strategic direction the industry actually so desperately needs. Take, for instance, Labour's 2024 manifesto commitment to, and I quote, supercharge the electric vehicle revolution and to make the UK, and I quote again, the best place in the world to manufacture electric cars. Bold words. And yet, 1 year into their term, we see precious little action, only rhetoric that seems to accept an electric future rather than a technology-neutral approach. I will give way to my constituency neighbour.
Grateful to the Right Honourable Member for giving way. Does he regret, under the Conservative government, the lack of action to bring forward battery manufacturing in the UK?
Well, what I regret is the ZEV mandate, which is why I voted against it at the time during the debate on that, which put shackles round our automotive industry, and something that I genuinely believe does need to be revisited and looked at to give our automotive sector the freedom to get on and innovate and provide the solutions for the future that consumers might actually want to buy in the first place. Even within the electric obsession, the promised gigafactory developments remain stalled or mired in uncertainty. Commercial investment incentives have been vague at best, and crucial supply chain support has failed to materialise in any meaningful way. Labour also pledged to spend on a national training programme to reskill workers for the green transition. Yet, Sir John, we still await details of how this will be delivered, when, and crucially, where. The skills gap in the automotive industry is widening by the day. Thousands of jobs are at risk, not because there is no demand for people to work in that sector, but because we do not have a pipeline of trained, job-ready individuals. The industry has been crying out for a coordinated national effort to address this, and what they have received instead is a patchwork of pilot schemes and a lot of ministerial hot air. Contrast this with pragmatic and targeted steps taken by the last government. The last government launched the Advanced Propulsion Centre and the Faraday Battery Challenge, programmes which secured investment in cutting-edge technologies and laid the groundwork, particularly in the electric vehicle sector. To attract global investment, we need to back British innovation and give investors confidence in our long-term industrial strategy. In government, Conservatives also took real action to support jobs. The Automotive Transformation Fund, backed by Conservative ministers, delivered vital support to manufacturers. And let us not forget the commitment made to free ports, which are already starting to attract inward investment and create those highly skilled jobs, including in areas directly linked to automotive logistics and component manufacture. Now, under Labour, we are seeing dithering where there should be decision-making. The industry does not need more consultations, it needs action. Businesses are ready to invest. Yes, in electric, but also in synthetics and hydrogen too. But they need the certainty that they can get on and do that. They need clarity on planning reform, on energy prices, on trade policy, and on the government's commitment to industrial growth. The government must address the ever-growing training deficit. The government must launch a comprehensive industry-led training strategy that spans apprenticeships, technical colleges and adult reskilling programmes. It must be tailored to the needs of automotive employers, not devised in isolation by Whitehall, where the government picks the winners and losers at odds with what the consumers at the end of the day want to buy. The government must do more to attract foreign direct investment into the automotive sector. That means tax incentives that are actually internationally competitive, a planning system that works at pace, and a stable regulatory environment. Labour's flirtation with regulatory overreach is already spooking the investors. The government must ensure that the UK's defossilisation transition is an opportunity for jobs and growth, not a burden on industry. And again, Sir John, I repeat, that means a genuinely technologically neutral support, embracing other technologies beyond battery electric, like those synthetic fuels and hydrogen, as well as putting on top of that realistic deadlines around any transition. So let me close, Sir John, by saying this. The automotive manufacturing sector is not asking for handouts. It is asking for clarity and leadership. The last Conservative government took steps in that direction. Labour, in contrast, has offered slogans over substance, pledges over performance. We cannot allow this government's inaction to cost Britain its place at the forefront of the global automotive industry. The time to act is now.
Minister of State for Industry at the Department of Business and Trade and the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero, Sarah Jones.
Thank you, Sir John. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship today and to have this very important debate. And I want to congratulate the member for Reigate for securing the debate and for her words. She made a very helpful summary of the importance of the automotive sector to the UK. She's absolutely right. The number of jobs, the amount it brings into the economy, and the importance of Toyota in her area, which is not that far from mine. And I know how important Toyota is. And of course, other members today have talked about the factories in their constituencies, and we know how important they are stabilising whole economies in terms of the supply chains and the wider economy. So can I thank her for the points that she's made, and I think she makes some very valid points. I would just start by saying we need to deal with the world as we find it today, and the world that we find it as we find it today is a difficult one in terms of the tariffs, and I will talk about those in more detail. And there are many challenges facing the automotive sector. I just wanted to begin by championing, as nobody mentioned it yet, the trade deal with India that we secured yesterday, because this is really good for the automotive industry in the UK, in particular JLR and our high-end manufacturing, because they are going to win from this deal. Automotive tariffs into India are historically incredibly high. They're 100%, and we have negotiated bringing it down to 10% under a new quota system. And the statistics that the Secretary of State talked about yesterday was that we could see 22,000 high-end cars from the UK being sold into the India market, which is for those high-end vehicles very substantial, and hopefully one that everyone will welcome. We've worked with the auto industry, of course, as we've developed our relationship with India and come to this deal. So we are confident that we've worked with them on it, and it's a good deal for the automotive industry. But let's come back to the challenging issues of the day. Members have rightly pointed to them in their contributions. My friend and member for Wolverhampton North East and I spoke yesterday about these issues, and we will continue to do so, and she will continue to champion JLR and the number of people who are employed and the importance of that site. I'll come on to talk a bit about our approach to the US and what we're doing, but I hope we will continue to have the conversations about JLR. And my friend, the member for Tipton and Wednesbury, also talked about the importance of the supply chains and her area, quoting companies like Lavenders, who are so important in that production for JLR. And again, I will talk a bit more about our approach to the US in a minute. It's not just the US, of course, it's the rapid growth of China as a major car manufacturer, high energy costs, as members have very rightly said, and the challenge of the transition to electric vehicles. This has led to lower sales, lower volumes of production, which in turn has put pressure on the supply chain, increasing the risk of job losses across the sector. But this government is not prepared to sit back and leave industry to face these challenges alone. I speak to the automotive industry, I would say, every week, often more regularly than that, and of course, since the introduction of tariffs, have been having regular roundtables with the whole sector that is affected and talking in detail about what needs to be done. We are determined to do what needs to be done to help our car industry weather the storm and to go for the growth in the long term that we all want to see. And where manufacturers are telling us that there are policy hurdles, we are listening, we are responding, and we are helping industry overcome them. That's why we launched the zero-emission vehicle mandate consultation back in December, and in April we announced significant changes to the mandate, which I think everybody in this place welcomes, to ease the path for the automotive sector's transition to electric vehicles. We've increased the flexibilities within the mandate for manufacturers up to 2030, smoothing the transition towards zero-emission vehicles. We're allowing hybrid cars like the Toyota Corolla and the Nissan e-Power to be sold until 2035 to help ease the transition and give industry more time to prepare. And British supercar brands like McLaren and Aston Martin have been exempted altogether from the 2030 phase-out date. And crucially, we're also boosting demand for electric vehicles by improving charging infrastructure, an issue that several members mentioned. The statistic at the moment on charging infrastructure is that there are now 76,500 public charging points. And the National Audit Office recently found that we were on track to deliver the 300,000 charge points. But I hear what members are saying, and I hear what the member for Reigate says about the need to go further. And of course, we're working with our colleagues in the Department for Transport to try and do just that. So moving on to the US trade deal, members will have seen speculation in the FT this morning that we're very close to a deal. Of course, we can't comment on that, but of course we know we're in a good starting position. We have good relationships with our colleagues in the US. The Secretary of State has been having regular conversations. Of course, the Prime Minister has been talking to the President as well. But we know these tariffs are a real concern for the sector, and we know, of course, we saw JLR having to temporarily pause shipments to the US last month. So from the outset, we have talked to the industry and been playing back our approach to them all the way along, and they very much support our calm and cool-headed response and the discussions that we're having with the US. That is what they want us to do. That is exactly what we are doing. We relaunched on the beginning of April a request for input to hear from businesses about their concerns and assessments of what the next steps need to be, and we are working through all of those now. The consultation wasn't a consultation, it was a request for input. For some reason, we have to call it a request for input. I don't know why. There you are. We are looking at the feedback and, of course, continuing to talk. My colleagues talk to the industry every day. We will always act in the best interests of the UK consumers and businesses. And throughout the last few weeks, I think it's right that we've been focused on negotiating a deal. Of course, my friend mentioned the letter from the chair of the Select Committee and other members mentioned preparations in the event that there isn't a deal. Obviously, our focus is on getting that deal, but of course, we would not be doing what we should if we weren't also looking at what options might be available to us in the event that there wasn't a deal. And of course, the chair of the Select Committee has suggested some, and of course, those are things that we are looking at in the event that we have to, but we firmly believe we are in a good position. We have a good relationship with the United States, and we want to secure the deal as quickly as we can. Aside from reduction of tariffs, we are really investing in the automotive industry. In the budget last year, we committed over £2 billion of capital, as has been mentioned, and R&D funding until 2030 for zero-emission vehicle manufacturing and their supply chains, and a further £300 million to drive the uptake of electric vehicles. This new funding will support cutting-edge research and the scale-up of innovative zero-emission vehicle technologies. It will also unlock capital investment in ZEVs, batteries and the wider supply chain. And this comes on top of the great work being supported by our Automotive Transformation Fund. That's making British brands and car manufacturers benefit from a globally competitive supply chain for electric vehicles and their batteries. This has given much confidence to the sector and helped secure major investments in the UK, including, of course, we have the £4 billion investment by Tata into their new gigafactory in Somerset. And we want future initiatives to work alongside the National Wealth Fund as part of a comprehensive offer to other big-hitting international investors. Several members raised the issue of skills, and absolutely right to do so, recognise that we have a skills gap we need to ensure we can fill through the development of the industrial strategy, which will come out in a short few weeks' time. We are working with the Department of Education and Skills England to look at the skills gaps across a whole range of industries in the UK, including advanced manufacturing and automotive, to see what the gaps are and to see how we can tilt funding to support those gaps. And that is exactly the work that we are doing. Apprenticeships are incredibly important in this space. There are some brilliant apprenticeship models out there in our car manufacturers, and of course we will continue to support that, and we are making the apprenticeship levy more flexible so that a wider range of people can use that model. The member for Reigate mentioned East Surrey College, which I know and is very good, and very pleased to see that they are helping in this space. She also raised the level 7 issue, which I recognise, and we're working on all these issues in the run-up to the industrial strategy and the publications that will go alongside that. But skills has to be at the heart of this agenda. We are not just wanting to grow an industry, but it is an industry in transition. You have to make sure you are transitioning the skills and creating the workforce of the future that we want to see. So members are right to raise, and of course we are working very hard on that, and we will have much more to say shortly, I hope. The member for Reigate mentioned a couple of the tax issues, the employee car ownership scheme and the double cab pickup vehicles. We have no plans to change those at the moment, but I hear what she's saying about the pressures, and what we are doing through the run-up to the spending review is looking at how can we support the industry more widely. How do we increase demand? How do we support? How do we help fund? And how do we break down further barriers? So she's right to raise the issues, and of course we continue to look at them. The draft, there'll be technical consultation later this year on the employee car ownership scheme as well, which she might want to look out for, but I hear the points that she makes. But I do believe and hope that when we come to the spending review, we are in this period of time where we are developing plans and not able to speak about them at this point because we can't yet confirm what the spending review will tell us. But the industrial strategy, the spending review, I hope will bring her reassurance that we are very serious about the automotive sector and supporting it going forward. We, in the run-up to the industrial strategy, are engaging on very complex issues with the sector to make sure whether it's access to finance, which is an issue, whether it's the planning system when it comes to electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We are looking at everything. Now, of course, all members raised energy prices. And of course, all members were right to do so. I am acutely aware of how expensive our energy costs are compared to other sectors. Our industrial energy costs doubled under the last government, and we want to take action to tackle that. Of course, we are pushing for clean energy by 2030 to ensure that those bills come down in the long term, and that we have the stability to ensure we don't have a massive shock like we did when the war in Ukraine started ever again. But we know that we need to do more. I am working at pace to do that, and again, I hope through the processes that we have coming up in the next few weeks, we will see movement there. But I completely understand. I'm working with lots of sectors, whether it's ceramics or chemicals or automotive, you know, that everybody has the same challenge, and we are looking to see what we can do about that. So to conclude, Sir John, the automotive sector is incredibly important to our country. I really appreciate members caring so much about those high quality jobs and those supply chains. We know we need to upskill and reskill the workforce. We know we need to provide the industry with support for the transition. We know we need to build our strengths in new technology, AI, software, connected and autonomous vehicles as well, which comes under this remit, and of course our off-road vehicles as well, which we are supporting. The automotive sector will be at the heart of our industrial strategy, and we will create the right climate for the industry to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Paul, to wind up.
Can I just say thank you to everyone who has attended this really important debate today. Particularly want to mention the Honourable Member for Wolverhampton North East and the Honourable Member for Tipton and Wednesbury. Have I said that correctly? Who's it? Brilliant. Thank you so much for I thank the members so much for their powerful speeches, and it's so clear how much you care about JLR and what they bring to your local constituencies. And I'm really grateful for you coming along and actually providing more on the manufacturing piece, which is something that's not in my constituency. So it was really good to hear that from you. And what really came through is obviously the tariffs are the really, really big urgent issue right now. Clearly, that has to be the number one priority, getting that deal. Obviously, energy costs as well, which I think all of us here have raised today. And I was really struck by the fact from Honourable Member for Tipton and Wednesbury about Nissan's plant being the most expensive to run in the world due to energy costs. And I think that in itself should be a massive wake-up call, and clearly we need to, certainly for the medium to long-term success of the automotive industry and all manufacturing across the country, we do need to address that. Can I also just thank the spokespersons as well? I think excellent questions were raised. I think a lot of us are asking the same questions, which is really helpful. I'm also heartened. I wasn't sure if there would be anyone else in the room with the same view on the ZEV mandate as me, so really heartening to see, funnily enough, on the same side of the room. So great to see someone else sceptical, shall we say, about whether that is the right approach, although, as I said, I appreciate that the government is trying to make that work as best it can and make the adjustments. I would also just like to lastly thank the Minister for a very clear, constructive, logical response. I'm really grateful you've gone through and addressed all of the concerns raised. I'm really reassured that you're looking into those. I just would say one thing on the India deal. Totally acknowledged that may well be beneficial for the automotive industry because the cost of employing those people will be lower. But I do think we also need to think more broadly about that because we could disincentivise recruitment of local residents. So I think there's just a bigger picture angle that needs to be looked at, and those concerns need to be considered too. But I will stop there, and I thank everyone for attending this important debate today.
Thank you. The question is that the House has considered government support for employment in the automotive manufacturing sector. As many of their opinions say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. This chamber is suspended until 11 a.m.